For the first time in 16 years, the Phoenix Suns have the chance to finish out a series at home. On today's episode of Locked On Suns, we'll preview Game 5 of Suns Clippers and talk a little bit about two guys who are going to need to step up. Let's go.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are back. This is Locked On Phoenix Suns. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and I'm your host, Brendon Kleen, a credentialed media member covering the Suns for the past 6 seasons, a writer at Suns.com, and the host of the Just Basketball Show wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen to start off Game 5 day, a home game, a chance to close it out, as I said. If you have not already, hit follow or subscribe to get this show into your feed every single Monday through Friday. Stay locked on to your favorite team. Become an everydayer. Listen to this show every single day. Brandon Dueñas is joining, as he does every week. Delayed by a day, airplane-induced headaches. He was a DNP for Monday's show, but he is back. Better today, honestly. Ready to preview Game 5, which is a much more exciting episode. I feel like that might have been planned, Brandon, but that's all right. Let's talk about Deandre Ayton first, though. We're going to hit Chris Paul and Deandre Ayton. I've talked a lot about those guys since Game 4 and in that recap as well as on Monday's show, but I think that they're the two kind of prime candidates to analyze here because they've been the most up and down. We kind of knew that, right? That's no surprise. But let's start with Ayton because Monty, again at practice today, was talking him up, and I couldn't help but he did so the same in the practice that they had in LA. I couldn't help but feel like Monty has this saying, Brandon, that he likes to call players up, not out. It feels like he's doing that with Ayton, because I just feel like the positivity that you're hearing from Monty doesn't quite match what Suns fans are feeling watching him. And I feel like there's a chance Monty is just choosing deliberately to take the high road here and try to get the most out of Ayton rather than calling him out, because this is only round 1.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think it's a long road ahead if they want to win a championship. We all know DeAndre Ayton's the X factor, especially looking ahead at their next round opponent. Very well could be Denver. They're going to need DeAndre desperately in that series. So we've seen what he's done against Jokic in the past. No one can really guard him, but I feel like Ayton does a good job of at least disrupting him. So I think keeping him in good spirits and keeping the dominate in quotes, hopefully to a minimum, or at least he can go out there and prove it in that series. That's kind of the whole point of what Monty's trying to do here. He's just trying to keep him motivated. It's another role for DeAndre. Like we talked a lot about how this is, Devin Booker and Chris Paul are going to have to adjust to playing to Kevin Durant. Now Ayton's doing the same thing, and every role they've asked him to play, I feel like he's done a good job. Sometimes it just takes time for you to kind of settle in. So I think, really with him, it just comes down to getting him to completely buy in. And I think Monty knows his guys well and knows how DeAndre is going to react to certain feedback. So just keeping him motivated, that's the main thing, because they're going to need him if they want to win a title.
It's interesting to me because I think he's been good enough since Game 2. Like, I think Game 1 was a clunker, in my opinion, in terms of focus, defensive rebounding, all that stuff. But Game 2, he had a nice scoring run in the second quarter that kind of helped keep them afloat. And then he did hit the glass. He's done that every game since. He's had at least 3 offensive rebounds in each of the past 3 games. That's really solid, and not something he did frequently in the past. You could obviously point to the missed free throws, but they haven't really hurt them, so I'm not going to be too picky. I thought the defense on Kawhi in Game 2 was solid as a second kind of aggressive help defender. I thought Game 4, the way that he helped a little bit more stop some of the runs that Westbrook and Powell had been creating with their scoring. All that stuff's been good. So I want to preface by saying I think he's been plenty good. But I also feel like as we look forward a little bit, it seems to me like the matchups are going to be primarily individual that he's going to need to be focused on, i.e. Jokic, Anthony Davis, potentially down the road. I don't really know with the Warriors. Like, they don't always punish big men unless they choose to, but a lot of the time they don't. So defensively, I don't feel like the Warriors are necessarily an Ayton series. The Grizzlies are. I don't know what the Grizzlies to make of that team right now, but it feels like those one-on-one matchups, I kind of trust him to hold up against a Jokic or a Davis. Obviously, those two guys are legendary players. You're not going to stop them, but I think he can hold his own. Mm-hmm. It's really those teams that make him rotate multiple times, keep focus, make second efforts defensively, contest and rebound, that type of stuff. I guess if LeBron really kicks it into gear or whatever, like forecasting the opponents down the road, that could be a problem. But in a way, I feel like the things he's had to face in this series are actually some of the tougher things on the defensive end. Offensively, what have you thought of him? Because it is a new role, like you said, but I don't really know if I expect much because the opportunities just aren't going to be there consistently.
Yeah, there's certainly going to be some growing pains, but I do feel like him and Durant have developed a nice little bit of chemistry where it seems like KD's trying to not force feed him, but just get him involved. He's going out of his way to get him involved because he knows that the Suns offense, in order for it to fully click, DeAndre hitting him on those short rolls, finding him down low, punishing switches, that's something that DeAndre is going to have to do. So he hasn't really had that breakout offensive game that we were expecting. But like you said, in game 2, he had a nice little stretch where he really kept the Suns offense afloat. And that ended up being critical for them to stay in that game. And I think it's just going to take time. It's just one of those things where you have so much offensive firepower on the court with Booker and Durant and Chris Paul. His usage is also, by the way, down quite a bit compared to what it normally is. So I think there's going to be adjustments for everyone across the board. And right now that's what we're seeing. Like for him, it's just mainly just about controlling the glass. Like he's been the leading rebounder the last 3 games between both teams. And that's how it has to be because he's not going to be scoring, 25, 30 points. That his value is really just going to come crashing the glass, the offensive glass. And for, the free throws, just leaving points on the board, that's something that can't happen. Like you said, it hasn't hurt them yet, but that's something that, DeAndre, he's typically a good free throw shooter, so I'm not too concerned about that. But yeah, overall, I think it's not that he's left room to be desired there, but it's more of just, it's going to take a little bit of time for the offense to kind of flow naturally.
I think KD finding him in some of those pin down and pick and roll and handoff situations is going to be an easy way for him to get points. I think primarily defense, like I talked about, and then I really do think like if he can just get 12 rebounds a game, this life will just be easier for the Suns, and he won't be in the crosshairs of criticism so much. It's a very basic job, and I understand his pedigree, his reputation, his salary, all that stuff. Telling that guy to, hey, just worry about the boards. I understand that's a big sacrifice and that is uncomfortable. But one other area I do think if they are trying to manufacture some ways to have him impact the game more, because he obviously can, I feel like I'm looking at the numbers and it's hard not to get ahead of ourselves with the Denver series because it feels like it's about to happen. We'll see how soon, but if the Suns or the Nuggets blew that, it would be pretty epic. The Nuggets are a bottom 10 transition defense team, and especially off of rebounds, they were a bottom 3 transition defense team. So when they miss, which good luck getting them to miss, but when they did, they were actually very susceptible to teams pushing and scoring on them. They limited how often that happened because, again, they don't miss very much, and their floor balance tends to be pretty good and all that stuff, but they are susceptible there. And that's where we saw Ayton 2 years ago really make an impact, was especially in the first round against the Lakers. I would say even against Denver that year, his ability to just beat his man down the court consistently and score that way, steals, lobs, just, breakaway dunks, whatever, that's going to be a weapon for them. Do you have any thoughts on how he could be more of a weapon going forward? Or I'll give you the option of responding to that. Or do you have any thoughts on his dominating Tesla battery quote? You can go silly or serious. I'll give you the last word here.
I'll go a little bit of both here, but first I'll shout out one thing. I think just in terms of like involvement with Ayton that I've noticed, at least I haven't gone through and watched every single one, but his screen setting to me has looked a lot better in this series. It seems like he's opening up opportunities for whether it's, Kevin or Devin coming off the screens. He's really creating space by setting those solid screens, taking the punishment, taking some hits. Then that's something they need from him. Just that toughness. A lot of people don't understand how much of a toll that takes on a big to just, you're running the floor, like you said, trying to, beat your big man down the court while after setting like 4 or 5 screens in one possession. It's a lot to take on. So for him, the key is just trying to be as physical as possible on screens, boxing out, just little things like that. As far as involvement goes, it really just comes down to him getting good position and just taking advantage of it, not taking too much time, not getting cute with it. Just, if you have a little dude on you, go up with it quick and punish him. And as far as the Tesla quote, considering some of the recalls those have got, I'm not sure if that's the best analogy, but I get his frustration with that because it seems like, there's sort of those same questions circling over and over again. So it's just kind of one of those, just another one of those Deandre quotes that we all knew. The second I saw it, I was like, oh, great. This is going to go viral. Everyone's going to quote this and overreact. I just don't really pay attention to that kind of stuff. So
no, I don't think it's fully fair. And look, as much as it was kind of funny to pick that specific car, especially because for car people, that's not the best engine or battery or whatever that you're trying to emulate. Pick like a man's man car. Like that's kind of what his vibe was. And then he went with the electric car, which is not in that same world. But look, I get it because I feel like he was promised and he's mostly been right that if he can commit to doing the job that the team needs him to do and that the team's success is there, that he will get lauded and appreciated and everyone will stop bothering him. And that hasn't happened. And that I can see why that would be pretty frustrating, but I don't think that the motor stuff is ever going to leave him. And there's some guys where that's just true. It's like Carmelo Anthony, he never stopped hearing about his defense. He's a great player. It's always there. Everybody has their limitations. So it is a little disappointing on the other end as a fan to listen to that, I'm sure, for a lot of people and think like, why don't you just address it? Because it's there, right? Like we've seen you struggle with that. So just speak to it. But we'll see. Maybe in time as he gets older, we might hear that. But Chris Paul, what can he do? What has he done? How will he need to continue to evolve and grow within this Suns system down the stretch of the playoff run as we get there? First, today's show, guys, brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is the number one place to find a ticket for anything. I narrowly missed seeing my new beloved Padres play the Diamondbacks this weekend. I did check Game Time because I didn't buy tickets ahead of time. I was hoping there would be something. Life got in the way, but they did for sure have plenty. Game Time is perfect for flash deals and last-minute tickets. Easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area. So whether that's sports or concerts or theater or whatever you love to do. Images of seat views. This is my absolute favorite one because a lot of the time I'm the guy searching through the internet to find the pictures, and you're finding some Facebook post from a million years ago or some weird janky website that has these things uploaded and you're not sure if you can trust it. Game Time has it all right there. You click the seat, you see the price, and right there you see the view. It's just that easy. Lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, and job loss protection also available on Game Time. It's the fastest growing ticketing app in the country for a reason. Get images of your seat before you buy tickets in a matter of seconds, and they get sent directly to your phone so you never have to dig through your email. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Okay, Chris Paul is averaging so far in these playoffs, Brandon, 13 points, 9 assists, 2.3 steals, 1.3 blocks, although that's very inflated by his last game. And then 40% shooting from the field, 29% from deep. I'll give you the floor here, but that last number that I just said is the one that catches my eye. What has been your takeaway from an up and down Chris Paul series through 4 games here?
Yeah, honestly, overall, I've kind of liked the way he's played. Some of the shots are just not falling, and that's going to happen. But I think he's not trying to force things too much. He's trying to make sure he gets his 2 superstars involved and balancing the attack. And I think his usage is the lowest we've seen it in quite some time at this stage. And just getting open. I don't know. I think just getting open shots is like the main thing. Torrey Craig being the 3rd leading scorer on the Suns is just like we all predicted is pretty hilarious. But I think Chris understands that scoring is not going to be necessary for him all the time, especially when he's playing with Booker and Durant. But the main thing with him is just trying to find it within the flow of the offense and then taking over like we know he can when he has those flashes. Like we've seen it a couple times this series where he'll hit a few shots in a row and it looks like, the point god's back. But, I feel like he's still not pacing himself, but just playing smart and taking over when he needs to. So, I can live with the low percentages. I think some of those shots he's missing are good looks. They're just not falling. And that bodes well for this offense in a way that I think some of those things will start to even out as we get deeper in the playoffs. But I just think the catch and shoot threes are really just the main thing. We've talked about this so many times, just playing in that, sort of Jason Kidd 2011 Mavericks role. He's a little more involved offensively than Kidd was. He's more of a floor general for that team. But I think Chris, he's a veteran. He knows what he has to do and when he has to take over. And that's, it's just a bonus when he does at this point.
Yeah, 2 of 8 from deep on catch and shoot threes in these 4 games so far. So I kind of look at both, honestly. I think only having 8 attempts feels pretty low to me, and I think that speaks to him passing some of those up. I think it speaks to the general way that the Suns offense has looked a little off and that the Clippers have been able to throw it off.
Yep.
But obviously you would expect any good shooter, great shooter, which he is, to be able to make more than 2 out of every 8 because most of those are going to be open. But his usage, as you said, 17.8%. It is pretty low, but it's honestly somewhat around. I think it's higher than it was for the Durant games in the regular season. So I think his aggressiveness to at least know that he needs to be a threat is promising. He only has 1 game with more than 1 turnover. So I agree. I don't really look at what he's doing and feel like it's hurting the team. I think if he passes up too many threes, that will hurt the team. He was only 2 attempts and then 1 attempt in games 1 and 2, and then really picked it up in 3 and 4. So hopefully that was a little bit of a switch that flipped. And then obviously, I think the defense is worth talking about because he's been creating these turnovers. He has 9 steals in the series. He had 3 blocks in game 4. I think that the way the Clippers are playing defense or are playing offense where it's really ISO heavy, it is very much, the first good shot, the ball is in the same guy's hands repeatedly, and the Clippers are just hoping that gets them points. They haven't really been able to exploit Chris Paul. But one difference, I think, with the Denver series this time around, if we do in fact get it, is Chris was taking 10 plus shots a game in that series every night. Outside of game 2 when the Suns blew out the Nuggets by 25 and Chris only had to play 30 minutes, he took at least 14 shots in every single game. He also had at least 7 assists in all of those games. He was far and away the focal point. But as I've said a lot of times, the main thing that the Nuggets were lacking in that series was offense, not defense. But what that means is Chris Paul didn't have to guard anybody. And so I wonder what happens if you watch the Nuggets, KCP is a threat. He's not just standing in the corner. He has developed a pretty darn good chemistry with Nikola Jokic himself already, not to mention the other 3 wing and guard players who we know are threats with Gordon, Porter, and Murray. So I worry about that a little bit. If he's having to play in rotation, fight through screens, end up in space, all that stuff, that could start to be a problem, even though it hasn't been against this Clippers team.
Yeah, no, I've liked his overall activity. Just getting back to what you were talking about earlier with the steals and blocks, those have gone up. A lot of that, like you said, was from last game. But him and Booker each have 5 blocks, which is more than Durant and Ayton have. So it just shows you that the activity they've been absolute menaces. I feel like on the ball. Just Chris is always like that, especially with the quick steals in transition, where it seems like every time he turns it over, he'll hustle back and somehow just poke it out of the opponent's hands, and it's great to watch.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think overall, like you said, just the defensive liability that Chris could be in a series against Denver, potentially something to monitor for sure. But it hasn't been a problem against this Clippers team at this point, which obviously no Paul George or Kawhi kind of changes that whole dynamic. But at the same time, I've liked his defensive aggression and just his rotations. I think that's the whole bottom line of the Kevin Durant trade, is it makes everyone's life easier on offense. So you can use a little more energy on defense, and it's playoff time as well. So it's kind of, Chris is coasting a little bit during the regular season. Now he knows he has to turn it up a notch the whole time he's out there. So it's just a different animal. And at this point, the heavy starter minutes, that's where it really starts to get worrisome for me, because they're playing these guys almost to the ground at this point. So they really have to take care of this game, wrap it up in 5 games. Hopefully Minnesota can extend the Denver series, maybe another game or so. But yeah, it's definitely something to monitor looking forward.
Rapid fire answer here. Do you feel like Ayton and Paul have been good enough and have the potential to impact the game in enough ways to be good enough to still get where this team wants to go? Have you seen anything that holds you back from feeling like they're going to be at the level to help carry Durant and Booker to ideally a championship, obviously, at the end of this whole thing? Yeah,
no, I think they can get there for sure. I don't know if it's going to happen all at once for each of them, or if it's going to come in spurts, but I think there's nothing that's really indicated to me that the other way at this point. It's like I said, it's just all about reps. These late game reps are huge. That's why I love this Clippers series, the way it's gone down. They've gotten these reps against a pretty tough team that really tries to make the game ugly. So I think that's going to help in this Denver series, where the Nuggets offensively are a different animal than the Clippers. We all know that, but just in terms of trying to execute and get both of those guys involved, because I think in that Denver series, looking ahead, still have to win tomorrow. Let's make that clear. But if Denver is the opponent, I think Chris and Deandre are going to be instrumental in that. So absolutely, I think they'll step up. They'll have their moments. It's just how consistent will it be? That could be the difference between losing a series in 6 or 7 games or winning it in 6 or 7.
I would agree. I think Chris's minutes worry me. I feel like some of the defensive stuff as we go forward in this playoff run worry me, but all things considered, I have seen it happen enough, even if not in this series, in the past 2 playoff runs, to feel pretty good. So with that in mind, let's talk about trying to win tomorrow, aka today for most people listening, in Game 5. We'll do that after a quick break. First, today's show, guys, brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook. Grand slams, no hitters, and double plays are back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. That's because right now new customers can step up to the plate with a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon, sign up, place your first bet, and get up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if you don't win. Let's see. Suns Clippers has to be up already. We've gotten the injury report. No Kawhi, no Paul George. The Suns are 12.5-point favorites at home. They are 9-1 favorites to win the game on the money line. That I don't like seeing that, but that speaks to how optimistic you should probably feel. Probably not a great game to bet on unless you really want to bet against the Suns with those odds, and that would probably make you feel depressed. But every single playoff game, props, parlays, money lines, point spreads, all of it at FanDuel every night. Don't miss your chance to get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. FanDuel, an official partner of Major League Baseball. Today's show also brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is simple. They fix daily fantasy sports. You pick 2 to 6 players, and if they will score more or less than their PrizePicks projection, And that's it. It's that easy. No you versus a pool, no you versus a league, no you versus an opponent. Just that. And every day of the NBA playoffs into the finals, one PrizePicks user will receive a chance at becoming a millionaire. One entry placed after 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time will be randomly selected each day. Whoever placed that entry will be given a 6-pick flex with the following payout. So you put one pick in. If you get selected, you get a chance to do the second one. If you have 6 correct picks, you get $1 million. If you're perfect, you get $1 million. If you get 5 correct, 80 grand, 4 correct, 16 grand. Full details can be found at prizepicks.com/million. You must opt in at that link to be eligible. Once you opt in, all you have to do is play the game like normal, and you could be the lucky winner. No competing against other people. Again, it's just you versus the projections. PrizePicks app, prizepicks.com, sign up. Also, if you're a first-time user, use the code LOCKEDON. Get a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. That's a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 at prizepicks.com. Promo code LOCKEDON. Okay, Brandon. So you mentioned it a little bit there, feeling good about how the series has gone through Game 4. I have to admit, I'm pretty tired of the Suns going up against teams that are injured. Both for the entertainment factor, we haven't always gotten the best series. The one time the Suns faced a fully healthy team last year, they lost, obviously, as we know. But even New Orleans, right? No Zion. The Bucks, we had, at least going into that series, the questions about Giannis. Now, a lot of Suns players were dealing with stuff at that time as well. Dario Saric goes out. I'm not even trying to do that whole math. It just sucks. And it always creates this weird way to analyze it. It has all the other fans throwing it at Suns fans, and it just makes things toxic and obnoxious and all that. So I have to admit, I'm tired of it. This series, it's part of why I wanted to just end, because maybe Paul George might play stuff. Like, I'm done with it. But on the injury note, Cameron Payne is coming back, most likely. He's probable for Game 5. So that is a nice boost for the Suns. Where do you have your eyes? Maybe you don't have to pile on my venting about the injuries, but if you do have thoughts there, do share. But what will you be watching for Game 5 as the Suns try to close this out?
So just circling back to how you started the show, can you just repeat for anyone that missed that, how long it's been since the Suns have won a home game, a closeout game at home?
Yeah, it's been 16 years. It was 2007, I believe.
Yep. So that's my main takeaways. I'm looking forward to just close it at home, please. I'll be in the building for this one.
Really?
Yep. So it'd be nice to be a part of something like that. Just, like you said, though, just getting the series over with. I'm kind of tired of these narratives and, will they play, will they not? Just let's get, especially with the heavy minutes that these guys are playing, it's just like, let's get this series over with. The Clippers are not going to go down without a fight. You already know that. Elimination games are, probably the toughest ones to win because of that desperation kicking in. So the Suns have to be prepared for that. I'm sure they will be. I'm sure Monty's been on them about that. These guys have been there before. They know that, the Clippers are going to come out swinging. And they're definitely not going to go down without a fight. That's just what we know about this team. Even when in this series, when it seems like the Suns are going to pull away, the Clippers will fight back. So just looking forward to ending and just, good times at home and just moving forward to a Denver series to get back on the injury train, like just hopefully both teams stay healthy and we could see them fight at full strength, because I think that'll be a hell of a series. So that's the main thing I'm looking forward to, is just getting past this weird first round, honestly.
Do you have your chugging spot downtown picked out already if it happens? Or are you going to the streets? What's the plan of action here?
We'll see where the night goes. There's some good spots downtown for sure. So there's plenty of options, but
I've seen a lot of people going. This feels kind of lame to me, personally, and I don't mean to call anybody out, but I have a friend who's been doing this, and I see it because I walk by the glass of the Fry's store. Mm-hmm. I understand the Fry's downtown has a bar. That is a lame spot to get a beer after a game. It's a freaking grocery store. Like, I understand it's a fancy grocery store and it's convenient because it's right there, but you're going to have your memorable night out after maybe the only playoff game you go to. I don't know. A lot of people aren't going to be at many of these things. You're going to go to a grocery store and hammer a beer. At least find a bar. Have some dignity.
Yeah. The funny part is there's probably a lot of people that are just learning this for the first time by you saying this, that Fry's has a bar inside of it for, all the Phoenicians.
Now there's going to be more people. I probably put more people on it
at
doing it by saying it. So I hope not.
Fuel to the fire.
All right. So I've never really been able to participate because the Suns crapped the bed last year, and the year before I was off kilter. I have to do these shows. It's always weird. Don't tell anybody except for the thousands of people who are listening, but text me afterward and I will potentially try to make an appearance wherever you go. I'll put that out there now, but
absolutely.
On the note of this game, Payne coming back is going to be big. And I think having him back in a game where before the next series is going to be a benefit. And that would just obviously go into try to close them out today, Tuesday. But even just the one game, the Suns offense was 4 points better per 100 possessions when Cam Payne was out there this season. Now, the on-off stuff for the Suns this year is completely wonky, almost impossible to keep up with. But I just feel like he had a very solid season when he was able to string together time on the court. That didn't happen often enough, but he was 56% from the rim, which was a bounce back from last year, and he was at 38% from three, which was also a bounce back from last year. So he wasn't able to stay healthy, but I think speaking to your point on Chris Paul staying fresh, being able to be at 100%, Payne being healthy will go a long way there. I think the bench, not only just points off the bench period, which Payne will be able to produce, but the other guys getting in position, somebody like Biyombo, who he's been good when he's been with the starters, but when he's out there with the bench, it's like a flapping fish on a dock. He just feels like he can't do anything. You got to get him shots. You got to get, obviously, the shooters set up. The pace always picks up when Payne is out there. So I know that's a small detail. That's probably not going to be the difference between them winning or losing, but I do think it matters. This is a talking point that I heard, though, Brandon, on from Michael Pina. He's been doing good write-ups of all these series over at The Ringer. I encourage everybody to read those. But on this series specifically, he had an article today about all the series, and what he highlighted from the Suns was he had a bunch of clips of plays, which was good finds of the team just looking like it has no idea what it's doing. And sometimes they were made baskets, which is why I thought they were especially good finds, because there was one that was a Torrey Craig 3. There was one that I think was a Durant mid-range shot, and you can see Durant throwing his arms up, Ayton shrugging. There was a sideline out of bounds play that Booker ended up getting a foul on Russ, but no one knew what the call was. That stuff is where you start to see the chemistry showing up. How much has that concerned you through these games? Because I have to admit, from what we saw in the regular season, I thought that they were further along with at least communication and who needs to be where for this moment and that moment than they've been in this first round. There has been a lot of confusion.
Yeah, I think anyone that says that doesn't concern them is lying to themselves at this point, because it is a concern. I think it's the biggest concern. Because the talent's not the concern. That's not the question. This team, we know, as a talent to win a championship. It's just going to come down to chemistry and how well they click. That's the ultimate. That's like the golden ticket to this team winning a title, is if they can figure it out on the fly, how to play off one another. Especially I think that second unit's going to be huge. Right now, it's difficult to imagine that with how things have shook out. But I think Cam Payne returning will be instrumental. I think Okogie's still going to play a role at some point in the playoffs, and Torrey Craig's not going to continue to shoot at a 80-something% true shooting and score 15 plus a game. So they're going to have to find some other ways, some other outlets offensively that can, provide some firepower. So I think there's still a long way to go. This team's far from perfect. And, the Clippers, I think, also deserve a little bit of credit because they've kind of brought out some of the worst in the Suns. But like you said, they're just so talented that sometimes it doesn't matter, and they can still finish possessions that were broken and still get a bucket. So just kind of the double-sided coin where they're that talented to where sometimes it won't matter, but there will be games, especially against a Denver team that has good chemistry. Assuming that is a matchup, I'll keep saying that. But there's times where those issues could lose them a game. And, that in the playoffs, that being the difference between one, like a win and a loss, could ultimately swing a series. So it's definitely something at the top of my mind.
Yeah. If you don't think that, close game, last 5 minutes, Jokic is going to create a great shot every single time down the court, then you're just buying into the anti-Jokic bias, or you haven't watched the Nuggets, or I don't know. It's going to happen, and they need to be way tighter in that stuff for those late game situations. But I think this game will test them either way. Like you said, there will be a level of desperation. We've seen that already. That's not going anywhere. No Leonard, no George. We still know what this team can be. How are you feeling? Minus 900. Does that feel, does that accurately represent your vibe on this one?
I would definitely not place that bet personally. It's just not a great return.
Less than 10 cents back or something.
Yeah. So yeah, this is not a game I'd bet on just in terms of value, but I do feel good about the Suns winning this one outright. I think they just, like I said, they just got to be careful. You can't let this team get confidence early. Some of the slow starts they've had, just, I think it's a great game to kind of button up the little things and prepare for Denver. They can't look at it that way, but it sort of is a rehearsal in a way, because they know they're going to have to execute not perfectly, but they're going to have to execute at a high level to win this game and close out a team, because it doesn't matter who you're playing in the NBA. Closeout games are by far the toughest ones to pull off. So just expect a desperate Clippers team, but I think the Suns will be locked in and be able to pull it off.
I do as well. Let's hope for all the people who bought tickets to that game that is the case. I'll be back with you for the everydayers after the buzzer as soon as I get home, depending on if Brandon invites me to wherever he will be or not. That might have something to do with timing. I'm also riding the light rail into the arena or into the game because there's a Diamondbacks game and I don't want to park underneath of Cityscape and be even later. I guarantee you I'd be later if I had to do that. So we'll see how the light rail cooperates. We'll see if there's any chugging that goes on. Until then, I will be right there with you. But listen to Locked On Sports today. Listen to Locked On NBA in the meantime. Get caught up on everything else going on around this league, around all of sports. Those shows are great. They're available on all podcast platforms as well. And I'll catch you guys later tonight.